Hi, guys. I have seen so many posts lately of people who have lost their jobs and how they're responding to loss of job. I mean, it's been a while for me. I have, you know, I'm. It makes me very thankful for my loan signing business. Um, and of course Social Security, and we hope that that'll be okay for a while. Who knows? I'm not going to worry about it, um but yeah, I I was watching one lady who lost her job, and I commented because, like I said, I've been in that situation before, and you feel embarrassed because you think people naturally assume you did something wrong, or you were a poor employee, and so it's embarrassing, and you kind of don't want to tell anybody. You just kind of want to keep it to yourself until you find something else. But uh, one thing my dad always told me was, when you lose a job, you need to tell everybody, because these are people that are going to help you help you find a job. If they hear something, you know, hopefully they'll contact you and or recommend you or something. But don't be embarrassed. Tell everybody. I worked in sales for years and years, and if you, they always told me, if you never lost a job working in sales, then you haven't been in sales long enough. And like I said, it might not be your fault, because, I worked in media sales for many years. And, sometimes somebody will come in and buy the station and get rid of all the people there and bring in their own people. Um, I had a situation where I had gone to this Christian radio station to work, and I was the last person hired. And the the sales manager said, he knew that they weren't going to keep him because he didn't so much get along that great with the incoming sales manager, or the incoming manager. Maybe, I think she became the general manager. I'm not sure, but everybody had to interview for their jobs, and he said they were only going to keep about 5 salespeople. Well, I think we already had at least 5, and I was the last one hired. So I was a single mom, and I had to figure out how how I was going to keep working, because I was single, I had kids, and I knew most likely, since I was the last salesperson hired, I was not top of the list, so they probably weren't going to keep me. I think they had 3 salespeople, because they were smaller than we were, but they bought our station. So I just started doing everything that was needed around there. Like, if we didn't have a receptionist that day, then I would be answering the phones. I learned, I had majored in journalism, radio, TV, film in college, but, that wasn't something that I had done in a while. People had, things had changed, you update things, but I learned to board op, or go in there and operate the boards while, or playing music, basically. I didn't want to be on air, but like on weekends, we would, you know, some of our personalities would be broadcasting live from certain locations, and I would just go in, and, nobody else wanted to come in and do it. I'd go in and board up, play music, and then, go to let the person that was live, let them do their little live broadcast, and then come on back and play music. Um, and eventually I learned how to do traffic which is not the same as, street traffic. In radio, a traffic coordinator is a person that schedules commercials, basically. And I know it sounds easy, but it's not, because if things are oversold, maybe we have a certain number of spots that can go into each commercial break, and a lot of times we'd be oversold, and you had to kind of figure out where to put all these commercials, and then you didn't want to put back to back, same type of businesses back to back. Like, you didn't maybe want to put two car dealerships back to back, so it wasn't as easy as you might think. But I learned to do that, and that is eventually the job I got. When the new people came, I was able to keep my job. My boss joked, because he said when he was interviewing and everything they asked him, he was saying, well, Carol does that. Well, Carol does that. And he's like, yeah, they're going to make you president. And like I said, I was just trying to keep a job because I had kids to take care of. Like I said, Christmas was coming. But like I said, I was able to keep my job, and it was different because, whereas they made changes that were really different. They were very nice people, but, they wanted all the women to wear dresses, and then all the air personalities who are used to coming in jeans and t-shirts, or shorts and t-shirts, they made them wear ties every day. And I had, one guy would be in the studio broadcasting, and I'd go in and I'd say, "Good morning, Dave. I hate my job." And we would laugh because it was so different. Like I said, they were nice people, but it just wasn't for me to be there anymore. And one day, a former traffic manager called to see what was going on, or ask me about the changes there. And I told her, yeah, I said, I'm really thinking of resign. I was resigning, and I let my manager know that, it wasn't for me anymore. I think the owners weren't too happy because they felt like they had, spent time getting me trained, only for me to run away after a short period. I don't even remember how long I was there. But I told her, the girl that called, I said, yeah, I'm quitting. And she wanted her job back because she had left. She'd had I think had a child, and was home being a mom. And I guess after her child got old enough, then she was ready to come back to work. So I told the manager about her. They interviewed her, and she ended up getting the job. Well, the manager didn't fire me. I was still working there, and I just thought, okay, this is not fair. I loved my manager. She was great. But I said, I told her, I said, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice now because I don't need to be here anymore. And I know she was probably having a hard time explaining to the owners why, I was still there. So, they gave me a nice little send-off going away. And I didn't have a job after this, which, I worked so hard to keep the job, and then I didn't want it anymore. So I signed up with a temp agency, and they immediately called me, and they said, hey, how'd you like to wash cars for Alamo? Alamo is a car rental place back then. And, my first thought was, hell no, I don't want to wash cars. And then I threw pride aside, and because I told myself, okay, this is what you get for quitting a job before you have another one to go to. And I said, okay, like this is a while back. It's like $4.75 an hour. But I ended up going to work for Alamo, and every day, washing cars every day. You know, I had still interviewed for some other stuff, but nothing had come up yet. And one day, you know, sometimes you wash the car and then you take it back out to the airport and then pick up a dirty car and bring it back to the base and wash the car. But one day, one of the managers was there, and she wanted to ride to the airport as I was taking the clean car back. So when we got in the car, the radio station I used to work for was playing. And I said, wow, I said, I used to work for that station. She's like, really? What did you do there? And I said, I was in sales. And she's like, really? She said, well, how'd you like to be in sales for Alamo? Which meant I would be at the counter. And I said, okay. And I think I worked at that counter for all of 1 week. And then I got a call from a local magazine that I'd interviewed with, and that's what they said. They offered me a job. You know, I think I had been at the counter for 1 day, and they called while I was at the counter, and I took the call, and I ended up getting that job. I think they told me I was their second choice. But the first person that they had hired, once she had found out she had to set her own appointments, because it was an ad sales job, then she didn't want to work there anymore. So I was the second choice, but I got that job, and I was glad to be out of there. But like I said, working in sales, you maybe lose jobs more than once. The other time I did lose a job, while I was in sales, it wasn't because I had done anything wrong. I wasn't last place. I had a sales manager that had hired 2 people after me. One of them was a Marine buddy, and then the other was his best friend's wife. And I was ahead of both of them in sales, but I guess, you know, he couldn't, of course, fire his best friend's wife because his best friend wasn't working at the time. So, and then the other guy, the Marine buddy, lived with him. He wanted to hire another Marine because he was, you know, I always say former Marine, but, you know, they're always Marines once a Marine. And he wanted to hire a Marine. So I ended up losing my job for somebody he wanted to hire. And I thought it was kind of ironic years later when I heard that the sales manager who fired me had passed. You know, I went down to his service, and I just thought to myself, well, I don't see those Marines that that he hired. That I didn't see them at the service. But, you know, of course, the best friend and his wife were there. And like I said, they're really nice people also. But yeah, like I said, if you lose a job, you know, tell people, don't be embarrassed. It could have been beyond your control. Maybe not. Even if it wasn't, if you did the best that you could, and you know you did, don't be embarrassed. Or even if it wasn't the best thing for you, maybe it wasn't a great fit, and you're looking to get into another line of work, then, you know, still tell people, let people know. Because like I said, like my dad said, these are the people who are going to be looking out for you and looking for a job for you. So that is my advice on if you lose a job. That's my best advice, actually. is tell people. But that's it. I just wanted to come on here real quick and say how thankful I am to be a loan signing agent, still in the business. This is year 5, so I'm grateful for that. And yeah, that's all I got for now. If you like my content, please subscribe, like, or comment. And I hope that you'll come see me in my next video. Thanks.